Ladies and gentlemen, this is Red Berry Rio here, and welcome back to another Civil Air Patrol video. In today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about retention and ways that you can retain members. Now, I had created a video on recruiting, so if you want to check out that video, it is in the iCard. And I just wanted to say that no person is the same when they join. And, well, no person is the same in general. So retention is going to be different for every single person. But here are a few techniques and tools that I have used to try to maintain member engagement and retain them in the program for as long as we can. So let's look at the reasons why people leave Civil Air Patrol first before we can figure out ways to keep them. So sometimes people are too busy to stay involved. Sometimes people are no longer interested. Sometimes people feel like they aren't progressing and they aren't getting what they want to get out of the program. So there are different reasons, and depending on what those reasons are, you can sometimes adjust and kind of course correct to try to intervene before that person completely leaves the program. But sometimes it's completely out of your control. So you won't be able to retain 100% of your members. And I think it's a really good goal to have like a specific percentage of how many members within your unit you want to try to retain within each year. Like the first year of joining, maybe try to have a 60% retention rate where 60% of brand new members renew their membership after 1 year or something like that. And then like have goals for how high of a percentage of the people from like that year you want to try to retain. Okay, so that's something that I've tried looking at, and it's something integrated into the strategic plan, and that's in addition to like different accomplishments that we want people to have. So there is that, and in addition to trying to retain based off of those numbers, just asking your people, why did you join, is a really good thing that I've tried doing. Like the first thing that I do when someone comes into the squadron is like, hey, how did you hear about us? What would you like to get out of Civil Air Patrol? Just to make sure that we set up their expectations first, because if they join and their expectations are not met, then it increases the likelihood that they don't want to stay, or they may consider Civil Air Patrol to be something that they don't want to invest time into. So just by making sure that you're clear with expectations at the beginning, and then you follow through with things that you promised people. Like if you say, orientation rides, they're a thing. We do orientation rides. You should totally join. And then the person doesn't get an orientation ride within the first 6 months of joining. Then that person may become disenfranchised because it's like, I joined because I wanted to fly and I've never flown. So I'm not as interested anymore. So just making sure that when members join, ensuring that they understand what your squadron can provide, because some squadrons have different resources available. Like I know some units don't have a pilot or a plane available, and then they'd have to do a lot more coordination with other units that might have those resources available in order to actually make that happen. But it's kind of up to what the unit can provide to make sure that expectations are reasonable for those members who are coming in and they are met. There's also being able to challenge your members and always give them something to work on. So this is actually a little bit more challenging with senior members because there are so many different specialty tracks. And I have done a video on specialty tracks, but at the squadron level, it can be very challenging to make sure that everyone feels like they are progressing, that everyone is getting involved with the education and training program, formerly known as professional development, and they're also understanding how the specialty track guides work. If you have a huge squadron, senior members are really, really hard to engage. And with a smaller squadron, like I'm in charge of a smaller squadron, every month I always check in with all of the senior members saying, okay guys, who has made progress on their education and training? Who has made progress on their specialty track? And who has made progress with the cohort, like the level that they're in? And if the members are like, oh, I haven't made progress, then I follow up with them and I say, okay, so what is preventing that progress from being made? And then I will try to give them the steps that they need if they don't understand how to like request a cohort, or if they don't know what like an annual training plan is, then I can walk them through that process. Because sometimes like members don't know what they're required to do. And by having like step-by-step guides and by giving them that individual consideration, that really increases their likelihood to be retained in the program, because it's like someone is investing time into me, so I'm willing to invest time into the squadron. There's also personal empowerment in that the members feel like they're actually essential to the unit and they aren't expendable. Like, volunteers are not expendable. They are necessary, and it's what the organization thrives on, that everyone has different backgrounds and that they can provide something unique to the squadron. So if someone's individual talents and interests are not utilized, then they may feel like, oh, I don't need to be here. Like, if you have someone join the unit, let's say to do public affairs, they don't understand how public affairs works, but they're really interested. Someone would have to mentor them and guide them into the position of, like, what does a public affairs officer do? What sort of frequency should you be posting things? What sort of things would be posted? How do you get into contact with newspapers and like news sites to try to publish articles on Civil Air Patrol? How do you establish that public relationship between your unit and the community? Someone may find that to be overwhelming, and they're excited, they're motivated, but they don't have the information and the knowledge. So as a unit, something that I suggest that you have is something called a continuity guide. And a continuity guide is essentially everything that you have been doing within that functional area of the unit, whether it be documents, whether it be like how the folders are structured or best practices, anything like that, in one place. So when that new member comes in, they can, like, let's say there's like an introductory document and it says, read me. And it's like the first thing that they read, and then it says, welcome to the public affairs team. In the public affairs team, we have the following responsibilities, and then like quick bullet points. And then here are a few places to help get you started. And then it might have like the regulations and like a quick summary of what each regulation means, and not just like the numbers, because numbers don't mean anything. It's the actual information that people want to know and like what the document means. So just like a summary sentence of what each of those essential regulations and pamphlets are, and if there's specific information that they are required to know for their specialty track, then including stuff like that in there and saying, make sure that you are assigned to the public affairs specialty track and you're in a public affairs duty position while you are here. And talk to your professional development officer, and they maybe like list 1 or 2 professional development officers or the deputy commander for seniors to be put into those positions if you have not been already. Typically, I do the first talk with the senior member first, and I say, what do you want to get involved with? And then once they turn in their paperwork, I have a secondary conversation with them and say, okay. And like I've talked about this before, going over that new member plan of action, and when we're doing that new member plan of action, assigning them then and there. So that day, it has in e-services that first date that they are in that duty position, because you're required to be in duty positions for like 6 months, a year, whatever it is. It varies between the different specialty tracks. But if you need to be in a duty position, get started early and then really integrate that person in. And by having mentors, whether they be in your unit or outside of your unit, it doesn't matter, as long as that person feels like they are getting engaged and they feel important. Now, like on the cadet side, brand new cadets, they might feel a little bit overwhelmed if they're younger, they don't have a ton of experience, but they're motivated. And so there is that element leader position, which is a really great stepping stone. But like when the person initially joins, maybe even giving them the opportunity to join a support team, like let's say join the emergency services team with the emergency services officer, senior member, and then the cadet in charge and another assistant cadet, and being part of that team so that they have visibility on what's going on. And then that cadet officer or whoever is the cadet in charge can ask that person questions, get their input, make them feel involved in the process so that they feel like they are important to the squadron, because they are providing something and they are helping out. Because one of the consistent problems that I have seen with quite a few units is that not everyone is considered essential. They have like 5 key people or like 10 key people who are running everything, and then everyone else is just kind of on the roster but isn't necessarily actively involved. And that does work. It can work, but if you want members to be more invested in your program, you have to invest in them first before they will invest back into the unit. So taking the time to give them individual attention. So like I would suggest having one-on-one mentorship with both senior members and cadets. So if there is an experienced senior member, when a brand new senior member comes in, they are given someone to contact directly and say, if you have any questions, talk to this person, and they will also be reaching out to you shortly, and having like a bi-weekly or tri-weekly conversation where every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, that senior member who's experienced checks in with that new member and is like, hey, how are things going? And they could even have 2 or 3 new senior members under their wing where they can have discussions together and saying, okay, so what are you challenged with? Okay, so you both are having a challenge with doing this thing. Let's have a conversation about like that basic customs and courtesy stuff. In level 1 and level 2, they do go over some of those concepts, but by having someone verbally explain and just like have a conversation with, it can help things sink in a little bit faster. And it's also like more relatable because you'll be talking to someone that you'll work actively with, and it's not just like a PowerPoint. So really, that individual consideration is super duper important. There's also long-term planning and making sure that people are progressing. There was a problem that I had when I would only do GTM3 F&P for years. And there was nothing wrong with that. It's good to review, and I even have been posting some GTM3 F&P videos for people to use as a resource, but I just kept doing it every single month. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. And it was super frustrating because I wanted to get more out of ES, and it wasn't until I tried a different unit. Well, I transferred out to a different unit, and they were like, oh, we can sign you off on all of these things. And I got GTM3 like as soon as I started visiting that other unit. And that was amazing because I was like, I didn't realize you could do this because no one explained those sort of things to me. I thought I could only do them in my home unit. So by giving people a way to progress, that can be a super critical thing to retain older cadets. Because, like, there's only one cadet commander position. There's only one deputy for support, deputy for operations. And if your squadron has 5 or 6 phase 3, phase 4 cadets, not all of them will feel like they're important or that they're contributing and they feel like they're getting something out of the program. So then they'll just sit and they'll promote, but they won't actually be as involved. So by asking the person, what do you want to get out of the program, and then helping them achieve their goals from the beginning of phase 1 to the end of phase 4, and helping them accomplish things across each phase is really, really good to do. Like, for example, you might have a goal of when someone is in phase 2, they will complete 1 badge, whether that be STEM, cyber, model rocketry, or the marksmanship badges, any of those. Trying to get one of those done within their time between phase 1 and phase 2. And by the end of phase 2, they've got that done. And at the end of phase 2, determining when they're going to encampment if they haven't already. And making sure that they get into encampment the next time that it's available. Like right now with COVID, it's a little bit difficult to do. But like during phase 1, planning out when you're going to go to encampment. And then during phase 2, going to encampment. And making it a step-by-step process. And then like for phase 3... they should at least apply to NCSAs, 1 NCSA, if not more, and helping them with that process. And then with phase 4, applying to more NCSAs, or getting involved with NISA as a staff member, or there's just so many opportunities that members don't always get to take advantage of. And by helping them accomplish those things across each phase and helping them set goals, in addition to the squadron having goals of like all members within this phase, we should expect them to be able to finish this requirement is a good thing to at least try to implement. Like you could try to have something with a Great Start Academy where members finish their ICUT and GES like during that Great Start Academy time, or like immediately after they finish it, they're told, here are the instructions, here's how you complete it. If you have any questions, contact the ES cadet or the senior member, but here are all the tools that you need to get there. So just making sure that members feel like they are getting something out of the program is really, really essential for them to just want to partake in things. So those are just a few of my thoughts. I know I went off a little bit on some tangents, but just generally speaking, summarized, individual consideration, long-term goal planning, both individually and as a squadron, and providing the tools that people need to accomplish what they are expecting to get out of the program. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any tips or tricks or ideas of how you recommend retaining members, please feel free to include them in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, toodles.